Hi everyone, I'm Shelly from There's No Place Like Home at redheadmom8.wordpress.com. It seems that right now in our society, we are going through a great awakening. People all around the world are waking up to the injustices that we are being put through by our own governments and the fact that maybe we've been fooled by the governments. A lot of times we've been thinking that they've been doing things for our own good, and it's coming out more and more now that they really don't have our best interests at heart. And this is something that you're just seeing across the board, and more people are starting to realize this every day. But one area of government really seems to be given a pass by these people, and that is public education. So that's what today's video is about, because you know what? You don't trust the government, but you trust their schools? You know that I am always making videos about the true history of education because people aren't told this. We're fooled to believe that it was just some philanthropic thing. People, our government was trying to help us, and people were trying to help us to better ourselves, and they wanted to give us a free education and opportunities. And that is the narrative that we're given about school. What we are not told about school is that people were doing fine before compulsory schooling ever set in. In fact, the literacy rate was higher then than it has ever been since compulsory schooling was instituted. And what really happened during those times was that the government overstepped its boundaries and decided to step out and forcibly take children out of their homes and put them in schools, because it was the beginning of the industrial revolution, and they needed workers for their factories, and they also needed consumers so that they would not overproduce. So not only did pulling kids out of the homes and putting them in schools begin to train obedient workers, which was based on the Prussian model. And if you look into the Prussian model of education, it's really disturbing that our school model is based on that, but it is, and that's history. But anyway, not only were they getting a future set of factory workers, they were also getting a set of people who were slowly losing their heritage. They were losing the life skills that has really been the lifeblood of our ancestors here in America. They were natural entrepreneurs. They were self-sufficient. They knew how to do things for themselves. They knew how to take care of themselves, and they didn't need to rely on the government or stores or buying something from this person or that person. They knew how to do things. They knew how to get things done. Once they started taking kids out of the schools, they no longer had that training at home, whether it was from their parents or through apprenticeships. They just didn't have that. So what ended up happening was, yeah, you did get a generation. I shouldn't even say a generation. It's generations of consumers. And that's where we're at now. I honestly think that if people from, say, the 1850s would come to us now and not look at all the high-tech stuff and everything, yeah, okay, that is definitely farther than what they had. But if they would look at individual people and the fact that they don't know how to grow their own food for the most part, and I'm not talking about everybody, but I'm talking about, for the most part, people don't know how to grow their own food. They don't know how to make their own clothing. They don't know how to butcher animals if they eat meat. They don't know how to build their own houses. And what has happened since compulsory schooling has set in is, not only has the government completely overstep its boundaries and go way beyond what our forefathers ever expected. Okay, I'm sure our forefathers never thought that the government was going to step out and demand that the children be taken from their citizens and put in public schools every day. But beyond that, nowadays you have to ask the government for permission to do everything, whether it's fishing, whether it's hunting, whether it's building an addition onto your house, whether it is paving your driveway, even yard sales, kids' lemonade stands. We need permission for everything from the government. And what so many people don't realize is that, yes, Public education is government education. So if you are awake to the fact that we are being used like cattle by our government, but you think it's ridiculous, and yes, some people have told me that, the idea that public education was deliberately put in place, to dumb us down and everything, they say, oh no, that's ridiculous. But no, that's the reality of it. Public education is government education. And one thing, and I know that a lot of people aren't going to like this, and I know that a lot of people aren't going to like a lot of what I have to say in this video, but I've actually discovered two things in the past several weeks as I ponder this. I've always got stuff running through my head. So one of the things is that I believe that the state of our schools today is evidence of the deep state. Now, you might be wondering why, how, or even how. How is that evidence of the deep state, the schools? Let's look at schools. And I'm not even just talking about elementary, middle, and high schools. I'm even talking about, public colleges. The indoctrination that is going on. The absolutely crazy indoctrination that is happening, that is turning out students who no longer have any common sense and whose morals are completely skewed. You don't really hear anything coming from the president, though, about wanting to stop that. You don't hear anything from the conservatives in Congress talking, no one seems to address this. No one seems to have a problem with the fact that kids are being given leftist indoctrination in schools. And, schools are supposed to be unbiased. They're supposed to be neutral. They shouldn't be getting indoctrination either way. But they clearly are, and everybody knows that. Why is it that our conservative government hasn't said a word about it? Why have they been letting this happen in our government schools who get government money, taxpayer money? Why are they allowing this to happen? I'm going to tell you why I believe it's because the schools are controlled at a deeper level, and that is why. There is someone else pulling the strings. Another thing that I have actually realized is that if you know what the Hegelian dialectic is, it actually, look it up if you're not really sure. I'm not going to get into it too much today. I'm actually going to be starting a series for my Patreon patrons on the Hegelian dialectic and how it applies to school. But I have realized the Hegelian dialectic very much applies to schools. And what that is problem, reaction, solution. So what happens in the Hegelian dialectic is that a problem is created intentionally, people react to it, and then the government steps in and gives a solution. And if you actually think about that in your head with problem, reaction, solution, that very much applies to our schools today. A problem, compulsory schooling, was created by the government. Kids were being taken out of their homes. People were being dumbed down. Our literacy levels are down. People who are in college now are now learning the types of things that were being taught in about the 5th grade in the 1800s in those one-room schoolhouses. I'm sorry, maybe not 5th grade. It might possibly be 8th grade. But the fact is that, yeah, it's dumbed down. So there, they created a problem. And so the reaction is that, as I was talking about before, nobody knows how to do anything. Everybody just knows how to go out there and just buy, spend all their money. Nobody ever has enough money for everything, so everybody has to keep going out there and working every day. And then that's more tax money for the government. So yeah, they're grabbing that the best that they can. And on top of that, kids are being pulled out of their homes. They don't have stable home lives anymore. What's the solution? Everybody looks to the schools to solve it. Send your kids to public schools for an education so that they have a better life when they're older. Or send your children to public schools so that they will have more stability, than they would at home. And that is really what's going on. I'm going to get into that more in the series that I'm doing for my Patreon patrons. Now, I will end up releasing those videos. I'm only going to be doing one a month for those, and I do release them 6 months after I present them to my Patreon patrons. So if you would like to wait, they will be out in, starting in 6 months or so. Otherwise, you can always check out my Patreon page and just see what the tiers are for my different patron levels, and just to see what it is that you get if you decide to become a patron of mine. But anyway, I just wanted to give you some food for thought, because it's something that we really need to think about. If you are awake to the fact that the government does not have our best interests at heart, why would you think that the schools have our best interests at heart? You know, and I'm not talking about the teachers. They're just a part of the machine, like the kids are. They're a part of the whole thing. It's not the teachers. It's the entire foundation of school. It's the entire intention of school. And it's those people who are really deep down, who are controlling the things that are going on there. We need to think about that. Stop trusting them. If you don't trust the government, you can't trust the schools. Anyway, that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram, because YouTube has disabled my comments. I wonder why. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, or if you would like to see how to get access to that series that's coming up, I will leave that link in the description box as well. And I hope you have a great day.